I have had worse Mondays. I make myself remember this as I stand in the elevator, holding a cardboard box of desk supplies and a lanyard I haven't clipped on yet, watching the floor numbers climb. There was the Monday I found out my grandfather died. The Monday I got rear-ended in traffic on the way to a final exam. The Monday 4 months ago, when I sat in a parking garage for 40 minutes after she texted me and told me we were done, and I read the message 6 times as though the 7th time it might say something different. This is worse, because here is the thing no one tells you about being appointed team lead at a new company. Human resources does not prepare you for the possibility that the woman you fell in love with last spring, the one who said it was too complicated, who said she needed space, who said I'm going to delete your number because otherwise I'll call you, Ethan, and I know myself, is sitting 20 feet from your new desk, on the other side of a glass partition, frowning at a spreadsheet. Nadia Voss. Her name is still in my body somewhere. Not in my phone. She asked me to delete it too, and I did, because I was trying to be the kind of person who respects what someone needs even when it costs something. But there are things you can delete from your phone and things you cannot delete from the way your chest works, and apparently her name falls into the second category. The elevator opens. I step out. My new manager, Director Lena Hartwell, is waiting with a smile that communicates welcome and efficiency in equal measure. She extends a hand, and I shake it, and over her shoulder I can see the open plan office, the rows of desks, and Nadia, still looking at her screen, still frowning, the same slight furrow between her brows that I used to smooth out with my thumb on Saturday mornings when she thought I was still half asleep. Ethan, Lena says, we're thrilled to have you. I want to get you settled before the all-staff on Thursday. I'm announcing some structural changes to the team, and I want your face to be familiar before I say your name out loud. She says this warmly, as if it is not the most ominous sentence I have heard in recent memory. Thursday. 3 days. I have 3 days before Lena Hartwell stands up in front of the entire department and announces that Ethan Cass is the new integrated analytics team lead, a role that Nadia Voss, I will later learn, has been quietly campaigning for since February. I don't know that yet. I only know that she hasn't looked up. I follow Lena toward a desk near the window, set my cardboard box down, and clip on the lanyard, and I think I am going to handle this with a great deal of maturity and professionalism, and also possibly never eat again. The outgoing team lead is a man named Marcus Pellier, and he finds me before I find him. He's the kind of person who fills a room slightly more than his physical size should allow, broad-shouldered, unhurried, with the confident posture of someone who has always known where he was going. He sets a coffee mug on my new desk without asking and says, "So, you're the one they brought in." I don't know how to interpret the inflection on "brought in," but it does not feel like a compliment. I tell him yes, I'm Ethan, and he says he knows who I am, and we shake hands in the way two people shake hands when at least one of them is considering the future as a competition. "You'll have good people," Marcus says, sitting down across from me without being invited. "Smart team, especially Voss. She's been carrying the analytics load since Q3. If you're smart, you'll let her run." He says this with the particular warmth of a man who is accustomed to being listened to, and who finds it genuinely puzzling when he is not. I understand in a few sentences that Marcus Pellier has spent the last several months mentoring Nadia for exactly the position I have just taken, and that my presence is an offense he has not yet decided how to categorize. I appreciate the context, I say, which is the most professional way I know how to say, "Please, stop sitting at my desk." He doesn't stop. She put together the entire Q3 forecast model. single-handedly. That's the kind of work that should have gotten her here. He gestures at my desk with an expression that says, the desk should be hers. I wonder if he knows. He can't know. She would not have told him. I meet Iris at lunch. Iris, Dahl, and I worked together for 2 years at my previous company. And she is the reason I found out about this job at all. And right now she is the only person in this building I would trust with anything. She takes one look at my face across the cafeteria table and says, "You look like you saw a ghost." Something like that. She waits. Iris has a gift for waiting. She never fills silence with noise, just sits in it, steady and composed, until the other person can't take it anymore. I last about 40 seconds. Nadia works here, I say. Iris puts down her fork. Nadia Voss, the one who, yes, she works here on my team. Iris is quiet for a moment, and then she says, with a kind of careful neutrality that I will recognize later as love, "Well, that's a thing." She picks her fork back up. "Have you talked to her?" "Not yet." She hasn't looked up from her screen. "She knows you're here." I look at her. "How do you know that?" "Because," Iris says, "the one thing that makes a person not look up is knowing exactly what they'd see if they did." I eat the rest of my lunch thinking about that. By Thursday, by the moment Lena Hartwell stands up and says my name out loud, Nadia will have to look up. I have 3 days to figure out what happens when she does. She finds me at 4:47 on Monday afternoon, which is later than I expected and sooner than I was ready for. I hear her before I see her, the specific sound of someone who has decided to do a hard thing and is walking toward it before they can change their mind. She stops at the edge of my desk. I look up. 4 months. She looks exactly the same, which is somehow worse than if she had looked different. She is wearing a dark green blouse I have never seen before. Her hair is shorter than it was. A few inches. That's all. But I notice it the way you notice everything about a person when you have spent time learning the inventory of them. And she is looking at me with an expression I can only describe as controlled. She has decided what this face will do, and it will do exactly that and nothing else. "Ethan," she says, "Nadia, we have between us a history that fits into neither of those 2 words, and somehow both of us manage to contain it there anyway." She sets a folder on my desk, a thin one, blue labeled Q4 forecast framework in her handwriting, and she says very professionally that Marcus suggested she brief me on the current project load before Thursday's announcement. "He thought it would help you hit the ground running," she says. The words are right. The cadence is careful in a way her cadence never used to be with me. Once, she talked to me the way I imagine most people talk to someone they are not performing for. Loose and quick, with the asides and the half-finished sentences and the footnotes that led somewhere. This is something else. This is a person who has rehearsed. "That's thoughtful," I say. "Thank you." A beat. She glances at the folder, back at me. The thing that is not being said is filling up all the space between us, and we are both very pointedly not saying it. "There are notes inside," she says. "The Thursday restructure, whatever Lena announces. I just want to make sure the Q4 deliverables don't get lost in the transition." She says this with the even, competent tone of a woman who is extremely focused on Q4 deliverables and is not thinking about anything else. "They won't," I say. "I'll make sure of it." She nods. She starts to turn away, and then she stops and turns back just slightly and says, with a precision that tells me she has been waiting to say it since 9 a.m., "I didn't know you were going to be here." "I know," I say. "I didn't know you were going to be here either." She holds my gaze for a moment, one full, unguarded second, the only one she has given me today, and then she nods again and walks back to her desk, And I sit there with the blue folder in my lap and the ghost of 4 months pressing on my sternum, and I think, 3 days. 3 days before, Lena stands up and says something that changes what Nadia and I are to each other, professionally, in front of everyone. And I have no idea what happens after that. Tuesday morning. Marcus is waiting at the coffee machine when I arrive, which I am beginning to understand is simply something he does. Positions himself at points of necessary convergence and waits to be encountered. He hands me a cup without asking how I take it, which means he has either asked someone or guessed, and both options bother me a little. She mentioned she briefed you, he says. She did. She's thorough. She's more than thorough. He says this without heat, which is almost more unsettling than if he'd said it with some. She was going to get that role, Ethan. She had a meeting with Lena scheduled for February. Lena moved it, then moved it again, and then suddenly you were announced. Nadia doesn't know the February meeting is why she didn't get it. She thinks she just didn't make the cut. He lets this land. He is watching me to see what I do with it. I'm telling you because I want you to understand what you walked into. I look at him. Why are you telling me, Marcus? Actually. He wraps both hands around his mug, and for a moment he looks less like someone playing a game and more like someone who is genuinely tired. Because I'm leaving Friday, he says, and because she's the best analyst I've worked with in 15 years, and I want to make sure someone is paying attention to that. The right way. He says the last 2 words with an emphasis that is not subtle. I take my coffee and I say, carefully, I intend to. He nods, and there is something in it that is not approval exactly. More like provisional trust, extended at arm's length and subject to revision. Then he says, almost as he's walking away, she works best when she's given the lead on something real, not handed the safe projects. Give her something that could fail, and she'll make sure it doesn't. I drink my coffee at my new desk, and I read through the blue folder for the 3rd time, and I think about what he said. She thinks she just didn't make the cut, and I wonder, not for the first time and not the last, whether the Thursday announcement is going to feel to Nadia like evidence of something she already believed about herself, or whether it could be something else, if I handle it right. It is a lot to carry into a Tuesday, but the clock is running, and whatever I'm going to do, I have 2 days left to figure out how. Wednesday is when she stops being careful with me. Not in a big way. She does not thaw overnight. She is not the person she was last spring, and I do not expect her to be. But there is a moment in the afternoon, in the small conference room, with the broken blinds, where we are both reviewing the Q4 deliverable list, when I say something about the forecast model, and she answers before she has time to edit herself, and for about 40 seconds she is just Nadia, quick and direct and slightly impatient, with imprecision, the way she always was, the way I always found inexplicably charming. Then she catches herself, and the careful version comes back, and she says, more formally, the model accounts for it. I can walk you through the logic if you need. I don't need, I say. I understood. She clicks her pen twice, a thing she does when she is thinking about saying something and deciding whether to say it. And then she says, Marcus told you I was supposed to get the role. It is not a question. He mentioned it, I say. Don't do that thing where you tiptoe around information, she says. And there it is, the impatience, right at the surface, cutting through the careful version like a hand through thin paper. I'm not fragile. I just want to know what the landscape looks like. He said Lena postponed a meeting in February, I say. He said you don't know that. He told me because he wanted me to understand what I walked into. She absorbs this. Her pen stops clicking. She looks down at the table, at the spreadsheet between us, and I watch her process the information, Not with hurt, exactly, but with the particular expression of someone recalibrating a picture. They thought they'd already finished painting. So it wasn't that I didn't. She stops. Starts again. I had assumed I just wasn't. Another stop. You were, I say. According to Marcus, you were. She is quiet for a moment, doing something with her expression that I recognize as not wanting to feel a thing in front of another person. Then she says, very evenly, good to know. She picks up her pen and makes a note on the deliverable list, neat and purposeful, and I look at the side of her face, the angle of her jaw, the steadiness she's pulling up from somewhere, and I think that she is one of the most controlled people I have ever met, and also that I have seen what lives underneath the control, and it is not cool at all. It is exactly the opposite. It runs very hot and very deep, and she knows it, which is why the lid stays on. We finish the list. She leaves without saying goodbye, which she has done both days this week, which I have decided is not rude, but is instead its own kind of honesty. The exit made before the conversation can drift somewhere she hasn't consented to go. I stay in the conference room for a while, listening to the broken blinds tick against the window frame, thinking about Thursday. Thursday arrives the way deadlines do. Not all at once, but in stages, each smaller and more irreversible than the last. First, the morning. Then the all-staff calendar invite that lands at 9 a.m. for an 11 a.m. meeting. Then the meeting itself, which I am standing in the back of, next to Iris, while Lena Hartwell occupies the front of the room with the comfortable authority of someone who has made difficult announcements before and does not require anyone's permission to feel at home in them. She thanks Marcus. Everyone claps, and Marcus stands and accepts it graciously. And from across the room, I watch Nadia clap, and the expression on her face is warm and sincere, the kind of expression you only make for a person who genuinely helped you. Then Lena says, I'm also delighted to introduce our new team lead, who many of you have already met this week. She says my name. She says it clearly, and without fanfare, just a name in a sentence, and the room turns, not all at once but in a wave, the way people turn when they want to see the face that goes with the name. And I am the face, and I nod, and I look for Nadia without meaning to, and find her immediately. She is not looking at me. She is looking at her hands, which are folded in her lap, still. The stillness is the thing. I have never seen Nadia Voss hold that still without something costing her. Iris presses her elbow lightly against mine, which is her version of a full sentence assessment of a situation, and I press back, which is mine. Lena finishes. People start to move. I am intercepted immediately by two colleagues whose names I don't yet have attached to their faces, and I shake hands and say the right things, and all the while I am aware of Nadia in my peripheral vision, moving toward the exit, and Marcus moving to intercept her. I watch him put a hand briefly on her shoulder. I watch her say something. I watch him say something back, with a look that I can only read from across the room as I know. I'm sorry. I tried. She nods once, and she leaves. And I am still shaking hands with people whose names I do not know, and I think. The clock has run. The announcement has been made. The thing that was abstract, me, her, this, is now a fact everyone in this building shares, and there is no version of the next week in which we do not have to deal with what that means. Marcus leaves Friday. He stops at my desk on his way out, box under one arm, coat over the other, and he says, just quietly enough that no one else can hear, she's going to fight the instinct to be excellent around you. She'll do good work, she can't help it, but she'll fight the instinct to let you see it. Don't let her shrink. He says this with the firmness of a handoff, like he is giving me something he built and trusting me not to drop it. I tell him I won't. He nods, And he goes, and the team watches him cross the office and disappear through the glass doors. And there is a small silence afterward that feels like the end of something I wasn't part of. Nadia doesn't come in on Friday. Annual leave, previously scheduled, which I know because it's in the team calendar, and not because no one tells me anything about Nadia directly, which I understand and accept and also find quietly maddening. I spend Friday learning the team. There are 6 of them, competent, watchful, curious about me in the way people are curious about a new manager when they haven't yet decided whether to trust them. I sit with each of them for 30 minutes, and I ask them what's working and what isn't, and what they'd change if they could, and I listen without writing things down, which seems to surprise them. Someone, a young analyst named Dev, who speaks in bullet points and seems to find most things faintly absurd, tells me that the previous system was very organized and also somewhat exhausting, and I say I appreciate the honesty, and he blinks at me like I've done something unexpected. Iris finds me at the end of the day when the office is emptying out. She sits in the chair across from my desk and does the waiting thing, and I last about 30 seconds this time. She didn't come in, I say. I know, that's allowed. She had leave planned. Yes, I'm not counting it as anything. Iris. Ethan. She looks at me with the expression she has worn since we have known each other, which is the expression of someone watching a person they are fond of do something slightly unnecessary. Can I say a thing? You're going to anyway. She deleted your number, she says, because she was scared of what she'd do with it. That's not a person who's over it. That's a person who knows their own weaknesses and removes the opportunity. She lets this settle, which means the problem isn't whether she's still. The problem is that she now works for you, and she's too proud to be in a situation she didn't choose. And she's going to need time to figure out how to be in it without losing something about herself. I look at her. How do you know all this? Because, she says simply, I know you, and I know the kind of person who would delete a number instead of just muting it. She stands, collects her bag, give her room. But don't disappear. There's a difference. She says this the way Iris says everything important. As a fact offered once, without decoration. I drive home in the dark thinking about the difference between room and disappearing. And I don't arrive at a conclusion, but I think I get closer to one somewhere around the bridge. The following Tuesday, she comes in early and goes straight to work, and by 10 a.m., she has sent me a revised version of the Q4 forecast model, with a note that says, addressed your comments from Thursday's brief, which is interesting because I didn't leave comments on the brief. I told her in the conference room that I understood the logic and didn't need a walkthrough. She has, in other words, invented comments for me to have made and addressed them, and what this amounts to is her doing extra work to put distance between us. By making our communication formal and textual and entirely about Q4. I reply, this is excellent. Would you walk the senior team through it Thursday? You should present it. You built it. A long pause. Then, happy to if that's what you need. I type back, it's not what I need, it's what's right. Another pause, shorter, no reply. The presentation is on Thursday, and it is, by any measure, very good. She presents with the ease of someone who has thought about a thing so deeply that explaining it has become almost effortless. Fielding questions from the senior team with precision and the occasional dry aside that makes Dev, sitting in the back, suppress a smile. I watched the room respond to her the way rooms respond to people who know something and aren't performing, knowing it. The director of strategy asks 3 follow-up questions. Each answer is better than the question deserved. Afterward, in the corridor, She falls into step beside me without quite meaning to. We're both heading the same direction, it's just geography. And I say, that was impressive. And she says, it's just the model. And I say, it's not just the model. And she says nothing. We walk another few steps. Then she says quietly, thank you for letting me present it. Nadia, I say, and stop walking, and she stops too. I didn't let you. It was yours. I just didn't take it from you. She looks at me, really looks, the kind of look that doesn't have a performance in it. And for a moment I think she might say something that comes from the part of her that is not being careful. And then her phone buzzes in her pocket, and the moment closes like a hand releasing something. And she says she has a call, and she walks away, and I stand in the corridor for a long moment, thinking, we are almost somewhere. We are right on the edge of almost somewhere. And I don't know what knocks us back yet, but something always does. It turns out to be Marcus. Marcus sends Nadia an email on Friday morning, and Nadia forwards it to me by accident. I know it's an accident because of the context. She was forwarding something else to me in the same thread, something about a client report, and she caught the wrong message. And I know she realizes the moment she sends it because my phone buzzes with a second message almost immediately that says, ignore that, wrong thread. Sorry, I have already read it. Marcus's email is not cruel. That's what makes it complicated. It is warm, actually. The warmth of a mentor, of someone who helped build something and wants to protect it. He is writing to check on her. He says he heard the Thursday presentation went well, that he knew it would. He says, I hope Cass is treating the work with the respect it deserves. I want you to know you can tell me if anything feels off. I still have Lena's ear, and you have options. He means well. I understand this. He is a man who spent months invested in Nadia's success, and he left before he could see it land, and he is checking in. None of this is wrong, exactly. But the phrase you have options sits in my chest like a stone, because I know what it means. There are other teams, other departments, other leads who are not me and not this complicated. He is leaving the door open for her to walk through it. I think about not saying anything. I think about treating it as an accidental forward of no significance. I think about how a man who is being strategic about his own position would handle this. I text her work number, which is the only number I have, at 11 a.m. I read it. I wasn't trying to. Can we talk this afternoon? 20 minutes of silence. Then, conference room B at 3. She is there when I arrive, sitting with her hands on the table, not looking at her phone, which means she has been thinking about this and not distracting herself from it. I sit across from her. The broken blinds are still broken. Someone has taped a note to them that says fix in capital letters, and no one has fixed them. He's not wrong, she says, before I can say anything. I do have options. I know, I say. She stops, tries again. This is a complicated situation, Ethan, professionally. You understand that. I do. And Marcus is looking out for me. That's all that is. I know that too. I look at her. Nadia, I'm not here to make your job harder. I want to make it easier. But I can't do that if you're looking for exits every time something gets complicated. I pause. Is that what you're doing? The blinds tick against the glass. She looks at the table, and then she looks at me, and she says very quietly and with a precision that tells me she has been sitting with this for longer than just the last 3 hours. I deleted your number because I thought that was the kind of person I needed to be. Someone who could make a clean cut and heal up neatly and move forward. A breath. I don't know if I was right about that. I sit with that for a moment. What changed? You came back, she says, with the faint, exasperated honesty of someone stating a fact they'd have preferred not to contend with. And you didn't You didn't make it strange. You just showed up and did your job and gave me the presentation and said it was mine and… She stops. Something moves across her face. It's annoying, she says finally. It's genuinely annoying how you're doing this. I feel, for the first time since Monday morning, something loosen in my chest. I'm sorry, I say, and I mean it, and also I am a little glad. She almost smiles, not quite, but the line of her mouth shifts slightly, and I know that line, and I know what it means when it shifts that way, and it means she is fighting the smile, which is its own answer. I'm not transferring, she says, and stands. But I need this to be at a speed I can handle. Whatever speed you need, I say. She nods. She goes. The broken blinds tick after her like a small, useless applause. Saturday, I clean my apartment. This is what I do when I don't know what else to do. I move through the rooms, restoring order, returning things to where they're supposed to be. There is something satisfying about a problem that is entirely physical and therefore entirely solvable. The mug goes here. The book goes there. The jacket that has been on the back of the chair since Tuesday goes back in the closet. Order returned. I find in the pocket of the jacket a receipt from a cafe near my old office. The date on it is from March. I stare at it for a moment. March was when I met her for coffee, 3 weeks after the thing between us had already started. Not officially, not named, just present, the way some things exist before you have the language for them. She had ordered her coffee wrong and didn't realize until the first sip and made a face that I found irrationally profound. I think I was already in trouble by then and didn't know it. I put the receipt in the recycling bin. I finish cleaning. I sit at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that is made correctly, and I think about what she said. I need this to be at a speed I can handle. I think about what Iris said. Give her room, but don't disappear. There's a difference. The difference, I think, is this. Disappearing is what you do when you have given up. Room is what you make when you believe the other person needs time to arrive at something on their own, and you are willing to wait for them to get there. The distance looks the same from the outside. The inside of it is entirely different. I refill my coffee. I sit with the space of the weekend. On Sunday evening, my phone buzzes. It is a work number I recognize. It is her work number. The message says, I'm looking at the Q4 model, and I think there's a better structure for the regional breakdown. Can I show you Monday? I smile at my phone like an idiot for a second before I reply. Then I type, yes, anytime. It is the smallest possible thing. It is also not small at all. The false calm, and what cracks it? The next 2 weeks are almost fine. We establish a rhythm, professional, even friendly, with the particular warmth of colleagues who know how to work together and are enjoying it. She brings me the regional breakdown restructure, which is genuinely better than what was there before, and I tell her so directly and without the managerial cushioning that she has told me. Twice she finds condescending. We eat lunch together 3 times in the cafeteria with Iris and Dev, and the conversation is easy in a way that surprises me every time, as though I keep expecting it to be harder and keep being wrong. I tell Iris one evening, I think we're figuring it out. Iris says, I say, what does mean? It means, she says carefully, that figuring it out as colleagues and actually resolving the thing are different projects, and I want to make sure you know which one you're in. I think about this. Can't they both happen at the same time? They can, she says, but one of them is going to require you to say something out loud that you haven't said yet, and I want to make sure you don't mistake the first project for the second one and stop there. I drive home, and I think she is probably right, and I decide that I will say the thing, soon, at the right moment, and I will not mistake the first project for the second one. And then Marcus calls Nadia. I only know about this because she tells me she comes to my office on a Thursday morning with a particular set to her shoulders that I have come to recognize as her carrying something she has not yet decided whether to put down, and she says that Marcus called her last night, that he has been offered a senior role at another firm, that they want a strong analytics lead, and he told them about her, and they want to interview her. She tells me this looking at the middle distance, not at me, which is the thing Shen does when she is being scrupulously fair, and it is costing her something. I thought you should know, she says, in case it affects the Q4 plan. Nadia, I say. Does it affect the Q4 plan? A pause. I haven't said yes to the interview. Okay. I haven't said no either. Also okay. She finally looks at me. You're being very calm about this. I'm calm because you haven't done anything yet, I say. And because I don't think your professional decisions are mine to have feelings about. I hold her gaze. But if you're asking me, not as your lead, but as, I stop. Find the right word. Find it sitting right there, simple, the one I have not used since March. As someone who knows you, if you're asking me, I think you should know that what you have here is real. What you've built in the last month is real. And I think you should be very sure that whatever you're running toward is more valuable than what you'd be leaving. The silence that follows is the longest one we have shared in this building. The blinds in my office. These ones work, which is a nice change, are still, and the whole floor feels for a moment like it is holding its breath. I wasn't asking you as my lead, she says. I know, I say. She leaves without saying which of the two she was asking me as. But the set of her shoulders is different when she goes. Something has shifted in the way she is carrying it. She tells Marcus no on Friday. She tells me on Monday in the kitchen, in the 30 seconds between when the coffee machine finishes and when we're each expected back at our desks. She says it the way she says things she has decided, plainly, without preamble, looking directly at me. I told him no. How does that feel? I ask. She thinks about it. Like I made the choice I wanted to make, she says. Which is different from the choice I thought I was supposed to make, which is, she pauses, which is a feeling I don't always trust, but I think I'm right about it this time. I hand her the coffee she just poured before I can think of a reason not to. For what it's worth, I say, I think you're right about it too. She takes it. Our fingers don't touch, quite. But the handoff is deliberate on both sides, which is its own kind of contact. The thing I haven't said yet, I say on Tuesday evening, which is not the perfectly calibrated right moment I had been mentally building toward, but is, instead, a moment that simply presents itself. We are the last two people in the office, which happens sometimes, not because either of us is manufacturing it, but because we both tend to stay late when the work is interesting. And the work has been very interesting lately. She is putting on her coat. I am turning off my monitor. The office is quiet around us, the way offices are quiet after hours. The particular emptiness of a space that belongs to noise and now doesn't. The hum of the building systems audible in a way they aren't during the day. Nadia, I say. She turns. I am standing by my desk, and she is standing by the door, and the whole empty office is between us. And I think, this is it, this is the thing. This is the one I have been not saying since the elevator on that first Monday morning. I didn't come here because you were here, I say. I want you to know that. I found out about the job from Iris, and I applied because it was the right move, and I didn't know until I stepped off the Levnate elevator. I need you to know that because I think it matters for you to know that you didn't cause this. She nods slowly. I know, she says. I think I knew that by Wednesday of the first week. A pause. I was looking for a reason to be angry at you, and I couldn't find one, and it was Extremely inconvenient. I almost laugh. I manage not to. And now, she says, I'm standing in an empty office at 7:45 in the evening, having a conversation I deleted your number to avoid having. She says this with the particular tone she uses for things that are genuinely, grudgingly funny, a wryness that is somehow also tender. So I think my strategy may not have been as effective as I intended. What was the strategy meant to achieve? She is quiet for a moment. The building hums. Outside the windows, the city is its low, dark blue self, right in the hour before full dark, the last of the light running out of the sky in a thin line above the buildings. I wanted to stop thinking about whether I'd made a mistake, she says, about ending it. I thought if I made it clean, total removal, no trace, I could stop wondering. She looks at me. It didn't work. No, I agree. It didn't. I wondered anyway, she says, and the word anyway carries a weight of months in it, of 4 months of wondering, of managing the wonder, of making it functional, of seeing me across the office on a Monday morning and deciding in an instant to look at her screen instead, almost constantly if I'm honest, which I wasn't. Being honest. Another pause. I'm being honest now. I cross the office toward her, which is not a long walk, but feels like the most purposeful one I have taken in recent memory. I stop when I'm close enough that the conversation becomes something else. Something that belongs to her, now, to decide what to do with. I know what I want, I say. I knew it on the elevator. I'm not going to make it complicated. But I also meant what I said. Whatever speed you need. She looks at me for a long moment, and I watch her make the decision I have not let myself assume she would make, the one that is entirely hers, and I see it land in her expression like a door opening inward instead of out. You still drink your coffee wrong, she says. I blink. What? March, she says, at the cafe near your old office. I watched you order, and I thought, this man makes coffee wrong, and I find it completely endearing, and I am in a great deal of trouble. She says this as if she is delivering a verdict she has been considering for 9 months and has finally decided is accurate. You take it too hot and too strong, and you don't wait for it to cool down, and you always make a face on the first sip, and then drink it anyway. I stare at her. You never said anything. I didn't want to tell you how much I was paying attention, she says. This, I think, is the thing she has been withholding. Not the wanting. I knew about the wanting, but the watching. The attention she had been paying since before I knew she was paying it. The inventory she had been quietly keeping of a person she was trying to let go of and couldn't. I reach out very slowly, and I straighten the lapel of her coat. It had gone slightly crooked when she put it on, and she goes very still under my hand, and I leave it there for a moment, and then I let it rest against her shoulder instead. I'm going to put your number back in my phone, she says, and the weight of what that sentence means in the context of everything that came before it, of 4 months of not saying it, of deleting it as an act of self-protection, of wondering anyway, makes it the most specific and irreplaceable thing she could possibly say. Not I miss you. Not let's try again. Your number back in my phone, which is her exact language for the exact thing she did. Undone. I'd like that, I say. She takes her phone out. I watch her open her contacts. I watch her type my name. Not Ethan with a last initial, or just a number without a name, but Ethan Cass, spelled right. The way you spell someone when you're not hedging, and she turns the screen toward me. Ethan Cass. Mobile. Say your number, she says. I say it. She types it. She saves it. The office holds us for a moment, quiet and unhurried. The city continuing its low blue shift outside the windows. Everything ordinary and everything changed. We leave together. In the elevator, she stands beside me instead of across from me, which is a different geometry than the one we've been maintaining and I am aware of the shift the way you're aware of a room when the temperature changes slightly. The same room, a different air. The elevator opens. We go inside, and then we step out, and I don't look back at the floor numbers as they change. I have been watching floor numbers all month, waiting for arrivals, and I think I can stop now. And we walk out into the city together, into the last of the day, and she is already making fun of how I'm going to order coffee tomorrow morning, and I am already looking forward to the face I'm going to make on the first sip, and the way she will watch me and not say anything, and be paying attention, the way she always was, the way I now know she always will be.